Online still has a problem in that 70%, 70, 80% of consumers abandon shopping carts. That's a problem
Oh yeah.
because what it does is it freezes inventory for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And if 70% of people are abandoning the cart and it's just sitting there, just think about the amount of billions of dollars that is just sitting there with no commitment whatsoever. And then you have that there's only about a 3% conversion rate of consumers who go to a site and actually hit the buy button.
Yeah.
How how are you combating that, or how do you think that is going to improve, and how do you think they should improve that?
I think that you really need to disintermediate the notion of shopping from purchasing. I think that if you ran a brick and mortar chain of stores and you decided you're going to put your store in a mall to drive footfall, and then you come to your store and you say, oh, well, look at this. My store is getting 1,000 people a day walking in the store, but only 10% of them buy. Whereas this other freestanding store, 50% of people walk in the door buy. So there must be something wrong with my mall store. But that's not the reality of it. Is that people tend to wander around the internet. And I mean, we've got clients that only do 0.5% conversion rates. Like people wander around the internet, and the goal here is to influence their purchase, separate that from like the actual purchase happening. And you look at your Warren Buffett model of like the long-term view of the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Can I keep this person in my brand for 10 years? And the way to do that is to make sure that like they have a lot of touches of your brand in a way that like makes sense for them. If you only rigidly say that like online shopping results in a purchase from me, then yeah, 99% of people who visit your site are going to be lost to other purchase methods.
What do you think's the biggest problem? I think what you're doing is you're separating rate of conversion at the buy button from the shopping cart abandonment, saying shopping cart abandonment is just them shopping. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
And so if you get them down to the buy button, and only 3 out of 100 are hitting the buy button, is it because they have too many options? Is it because they're price shopping? Is it because that the product descriptions were not good enough? They didn't have enough product reviews. What do you think?
I think there's an array of reasons why, but the largest and most important thing is that, just like having a store in the mall, people are there to entertain themselves. They're visiting your site and they're looking at your cooler, or they're looking at your bike, or they're looking at your clothing, and they really probably 50% of them have no intention to buy, and probably 70% of them can't buy. One of the people that's in our orbit is a specialist in consumer psychological behavior, and we look at some of these things. Most people that visit a site, like they're not there to buy. They don't. It's just like the people in a mall. There are people walking in jewelry stores at malls that are not equipped to be able to buy. It doesn't matter what the offer is. It doesn't matter where you put the button or the cash register. They are not going to buy. They're there, just as information seeking or time, wasting.
So, and the difference there is they don't walk out with the inventory and say they're going to take it for 2 weeks and test it. Whereas online, they go to the shopping cart and they take it out of the inventory. So, how do you see them maybe taking that shopping cart abandonment down just, a touch? Or do you just ignore it and say, I'm happy that they were here, and I'll do my email campaigns to say, hey, after a few days, I'll say, are you going to purchase, or, buy now, or a discount or whatever, to get them out. But after a week or 2 weeks, you just say, okay, is that just the cost of doing business?
Well, I think that the very first step in that is to understand the reasons why you actually are putting information about your store or your brand online. Okay. And, before the internet came along, people spent millions of dollars to put ads in magazines. Those plainly didn't lead to a magazine. You know, nobody looked at a magazine and called a number and gave them a credit card, and like that wasn't a thing. You know, marketing is a continuum, and you've got to decide, like, you know, what's my effort here that is meant to like bolster and build goodwill for my brand and build enthusiastic customers that are going to go spread the word about my brand to their friends. What part of it is that? And once you understand that, like, you know, that a large portion of people are just collecting information and perhaps will talk about your products to your customers, and then the rising tide effect is occurring. Mm-hmm. Yes, some people that you're trying to drive to your site come through Google Shopping, or come, you know, maybe they come start on Amazon and click through, but like some people are looking to make a purchase, and you have to be prepared and optimize the bottom of the funnel like you're describing. But a lot of them are just there like trying to learn about your products. And I think that the worst thing you can do, and I'm going to use Apple again as a great example, at the very bottom of Apple's conversion funnel, okay, the very last thing they do is ask you how you want to get your product. Okay, do you want it shipped? Do you want to pick it up, or do you want it delivered? I think that like the best way to make sure that, like, you know, the customer ends up with your product in their hand, rather than driving them, you know, generically off to some address, is to like give them the opportunity to, like, you know, choose how they want to do it at the end. I think that that's a great way to get the final conversion and make sure your product stays on, you know, on their back, or that they're riding it the next day. That's what you want to do.
And the funnel now is probably it will be much different. And to get your opinion on this, it used to be the funnel would be deliver the product to specialty, since it was 80% of your revenue. Make sure there's a lot of co-op dollars there to support them.
Sure.
Do the branding in the magazines, those kind of things, and then drive everything down to retail. Now with online, and you have this mix of online, how does that funnel, how do you think the new normal is regarding that funnel? So it, you know, is there, it's not a funnel anymore because you don't come in from the top, you come in from the sides and
all different angles, yeah,
and all different angles.
Well, I mean, you know, what's happening in my opinion is that you know, retailers are trying to crowd into the top part. Okay, most retailers aren't that interested in like trying to become great e-commerce merchants. They've got their brick and mortar stores, and so they're trying to get some, like, you know, information in front of the shopper about the products that they carry, and hopefully entice that shopper to like walk into their store. And what we see from like Google's own stats is that 74% of people who are shown that a product is near them will be in a store within 74 hours. Ask Best Buy, Target, Home Depot, Walmart. That's what's happening, is that these guys are seeing very, very high conversion rates for brick and mortar. Get people to the store, get them to the store, get them to the store. If they can do that, that's how you keep a customer to be a loyal customer. And then our argument is that loyal customers convert at a much higher rate. People who love your products, when they come to your site, maybe it's the second, third, or eighth time, they buy at a much higher rate. They're already familiar with your brand. You're not trying to, like, you know, convince them of how good your brand is. They might be wearing one of your products at that moment, Lululemon, for example. They've discovered your products in a store. The next time they come to your site, you've already overcome all of those barriers. Is this going to fit me? What is it going to look like? That customer knows that they like your products. That's a really big part of, like, you know, unifying all the different sales channels under one roof.
Mm-hmm. So if we're going to unify all of this under one roof, then what would be, you know, we're starting to talk about the new normal. And mm-hmm. So when you talk about unifying under one roof, and you talk about all the options that the consumers have, and we talk about a variety of different things, in the spring of 2022, in the summer of 2022, what do you think is different? What's the new normal?
I think that like, the way I like to say this is that, and I alluded to this at the very beginning, I think that what's happening and what we're seeing is that back in the 90s, somebody discovered gold in California. Okay. And a lot of people got in their wagons and they came all the way from the East Coast. Some of them got there first. Some of them staked out plots of land. Some of them staked out really big plots of land. Some of them some staked out other big plots, and some staked out small plots of land. A few of the big plots of land are producing a lot of gold. A few of the other ones are never going to produce gold, but people are still betting on them. And there's a whole lot of people back here that are just now starting to think about it. But the reality is that the online shopping space is maturing. Okay, to your question, every year that goes by, online becomes more mature. Okay, when you could first book a dinner reservation with Open Table, it was a novelty and people, used it like crazy, but it's just become like the norm now. I think click and collect, BOPUS, these were all pretty new, and we're seeing a lot of uptake, in early time. But the reality is that like Home Depot's been at the BOPUS business for a while. It's mature for them, and it's a large percentage of their business. And I think that like what we're going to see is we're going to see all of these kind of like consumer options just become the norm, like Fandango and buying your ticket, or Ticketmaster and buying your sports event. Like it's just the way it happens. You don't go buy your plane ticket at a Delta little office anymore. You just buy it online, and retail is going to evolve to that too.
So we talked about consumer research, and we talked about, how consumer product reviews drive consumer research.
Yes.
It is the
one of the main legs.
One of the main legs of consumer research. Now, if that's the case, brands are having somewhat of a problem getting product reviews on their site.
Yes.
And Amazon started this a long time ago to say, we have to keep those reviews on our site so that they stay on our site because it drives revenue. Now, if you have brand.coms, and this also trickles down to the specialty stores, especially the grassroots buying groups and all the other buying groups with regard to the specialty, they're having problems getting product reviews and getting consumers to write product. So if you've got a driver that drives business and you can't get that driver on your website, what do you do?
Well, so you're right, Paul. I completely agree with you. And you and I have been like going back and forth about this for a very long time. And we identified at the very beginning that Amazon has 3 legs of their stool, and one of those is original content. And I don't think that a single brand, single retailer is ever going to be successful at driving a lot of original content because they don't have a community around them. Like even if you're a great clothing brand or a great bike brand or you're a great cooler brand, I think that the biggest challenge you face is creating a community on your own site where reviews are seen by a lot of people and commented on it. And Amazon has a real big lead in that. It's why we invented locally as more of a marketplace and less of a single freestanding entity. Okay. I think that like what you're doing, your aggregation of the content and your sensing of the data gives what the consumer is really looking for. And I think that like having that near the conversion funnel is critically important. It's just like having no content on the page for the product. Yeah, there's the product, but like there's no content, no original content or anything. Like having review content is critically important to like the consumer.
Yeah, and what Channel Signal has done is bake that into an aggregated score and putting that score next to the buy button. So when you go to a brand or a specialty shop, you see, okay, I've already done my research, and I've gone to Zappos and I've gone to Amazon. Now I'm going back to the brand, or I'm going to my favorite specialty store because there's some brand trust there.
That's right.
And that's never going to go away. And so one of the things about an aggregated score is you put that there, and now consumers, in the research that we're seeing, and the consumers are saying, okay, that's enough to put me over the top when I see a market score there with what everybody thinks of the performance of that product. And, perhaps that's one solution, but certainly the voice of the consumer is going to have to be brought into the online brands more and into specialty shops more. Do you agree?
I couldn't agree more. And look, I grew up, and I think you grew up in the same period of time where, you had the Good Housekeeping seal of approval, you had UL ratings, you had Consumer Report scoring and the best car, and that still is a thing that exists. Okay. It's just that it's become detached from the consumers. Like if I want to buy a car, I'm going to go read reviews. Okay. I mean, I just am. And, one of those reviews might be Consumer Reports. And so like having those reviews available to me that like, basically say this is a trusted product among consumers, critically important for my buying decisions.
Mike, this has been terrific for, our interview series with Out and Back. You once again, our producer said, well, is he going to have opinions, and can he really express himself? And I said, of all the people that I know, Mike Massey will cover both those bases in spades.
There you go. Good.
Well, thank you for your
Paul.
time, Mike. Sure appreciate it.
I really appreciate it too.